Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Lunar Observer, the unscheduled podcast about fans discussing Insomniac games, the creators of Fongoid with a Stick, Spyro the Space Moose, and Intransigence, Fall of Blarg. I'm Division 10, and I'm being joined by...
Kebabs.
And as you can tell by our 3 intro choice games, we are going to be headlong into Ratchet and Clank news this time.
Yeah, there was a March Media Madness big blowout bonanza that I covered with Division 10 in some places in a very lengthy, in-depth series that I've decided to split up into multiple parts.
So we are going to be covering news from a bunch of different sources, including IGN, GameSpot, Kind of Funny also ran some news coverage, and Polygon as well. Am I missing anybody?
Yeah, there's a bunch of others. I did get some videos from PlayStation Access, and Game Informer and The Verge also covered it as well.
Which is 5 planets? Nivalis?
Yeah, that would be 4. Nivalis, Nivalis, Kerwan, Iridia, and Blackwater City. Mm-hmm. That is the order in the galactic menu. But after you visit Nivalis, you can actually skip over informing the rangers on Kerwan and do Iridia and Blackwater City first.
Yeah, so we're going to be covering those 4 levels, details that we saw, including the card system, which is really cool, which might be replacing skill points completely. It's hard to tell.
Really? Where did you hear that?
Well, nobody's seen anything about skill points, not in any of the menus or anything. So unless they're in an area that nobody went to,
I'm thinking that they were, maybe?
No.
Well, you are right. I didn't see them. GameSpot went through the menus. They didn't go into weapons or gadgets, so I have no idea if you'll be able to see 3D models of the weapons like you could in A Crack in Time. That was really cool. And there was nothing really in the index section. So...
Yeah, so
the
as far as we've seen so far, this might be the end of skill points. How do you feel about that?
Well, I wouldn't say that it is the end, but
there are trophies.
Yeah, that might be actually the approach that Insomniac is taking, because skill points and trophies have always clashed with each other on some level, but there were always skill points that had trophies attached to them. So skill points are most likely going to be relegated to trophies, which is a bit sad in a way, because there are some particular skill points that would be ridiculous if they were a trophy. So for example, the Cheapskate trophy in Tools of Destruction asks you to buy 1 combustor shot. That isn't even worth a bronze trophy. That is a joke.
Yeah, and then on the other end of the scale, you get 210 to Barlow. I can't remember the skill point name. But that race on Barlow where you have to get hoverbike race.
Yeah, you have to beat it in a particular time. That is a good trophy.
I will never get that trophy. Never.
Well,
but it's also a skill point.
It is a good trophy requirement.
It is. But a lot of the trophy requirements for the original trilogy included, like, get all 40 gold bolts. Well, you're already doing that. Or
upgrade all the weapons.
Yeah. So it might just be that there's no more skill points. Now, we don't know because we haven't seen everything, but they did do a pretty thorough view through the menus, and they weren't there.
Yeah, which is sad in a way, but we'll get to that when we start talking about the game. We do have particular coverage of stuff that was before the March Media Madness Big Blowout Bonanza. So, should we head on over into the news?
Yeah, let's go straight into the news. Kebabs, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Okay, and now it's time for the news. The first piece of news is from the 10th of March, and it is because the website for the Ratchet & Clank movie was given a big update. Before, it was basically a static wallpaper with Ratchet & Clank coming to theaters in 2015, which totally happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do the time warp again. Anyway, so...
Yeah, and the website contains many new pieces of media, including images, GIFs, and text. As always, most of it we've either seen before and are familiar with, but a fair bit was also brand new, mainly the stuff that was in the PNGs that are available on the site, sort of like characters standing on asteroids and platforms to decorate the look of the site, as well as character bios. We'll be covering the images and videos and stuff in the in-depth series that I recorded with Division 10 for a little bit before we've recorded this episode. So we're not going to cover it in this episode. This sentence is really convoluted. But for today, we'll be discussing the stuff that can't be tackled very well in an in-depth. And I've made a bit of a list, and we can read them as we like.
Yeah, so let's alternate. The first big thing is Ratchet's described as a typical impulsive teenager, giving him an approximate age that is, well, basically around that of what he was last time around in the original Ratchet and Clank game, where using Jack X ages, he was determined to be approximately 15 years of age.
Yeah, because the deadlocked bio put him at 18. We know that Upper Arsenal took place 2 years after Ratchet and Clank 1, because that's when his employee discount kicked in. Plus, the game seemed to have a general rule where each game is... the passage of time between each game is also parallel to when the games were released. So, the 2-year gap between A Crack in Time and All for One is reflected both in-universe and because of the fact that All for One and A Crack in Time were just flat out released 2 years apart in 2009 and 2011.
Yeah, so there's little hints as to how old Ratchet's getting, and if you're using that timeline, by the time he hits into the Nexus, he's 26.
Yeah.
The fact that they mention that he is in fact a teenager on the website puts him at about the same age as he was last time.
Yeah, this ultimately doesn't change anything we know, but I thought it was interesting that they noted that, because there are some suggestions there. Although Ratchet and Clank tends to have a Simpsons-like sense of character ages, where a character is written to be a specific age, and they stay at that age whenever we see them.
Which is interesting, because Ratchet's definitely matured over his time, and him being quote-unquote 26 by the time Into the Nexus rolls around makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Just as far as his character development is concerned.
Correct, but he still feels, by and large, like a teenager, relatively. It's more his core character and his Lombaxian mannerisms that have matured. The next item is that there have been well, actually, we covered this in the in-depth, didn't we?
We did, but let's give a short version to those who aren't going to sit through it. Just a brief overview.
Yeah, it is several hours, the in-depth series, so we'll cover it here for your convenience. There have been the first hints as to A Crack in Time influencing the origin story. On the website, Clank's bio description starts off by describing him as born out of a Zoni-aided Warbot factory malfunction. Clank is the personification of innocent Booksmart. This is obviously referring to Clank's origins as his only created robot, something that was not present in the original game because Orvis's influence hadn't been written yet at the time. That would be 7 years away.
Yeah, I mean, the way Orvis's influence had been written is it's a retcon without actually retconning anything, that his mother, being the actual factory itself, created him, but his father is the one who provided the spark.
Yeah. And we never actually see that. And in Ratchet and Clank 1, there are no visual indications as to any actual tampering, aside from the fact that the computer made a malfunction. And there are suggestions when you go back to Quartu that the computer was sort of more complicit and was aware of Clank's malfunction and did it on purpose. Maybe it felt guilty. But the evidence that I have for that is that, the computer is proud and that there is still more for Clank to do. So it appeared that suggested that Clank was created for the specific reason of foiling Drek's plans.
Yeah, it really seems from the way that she talks to him that she's well aware of what she did, and she did it very much on purpose.
Yeah. So, yeah, I said this in the in-depth video, but I am not going to take this as being canon until I see it in the movie or the game. And that is because websites and instruction manuals and other places like that, despite being quote-unquote official media, are often not written by the actual writers of the work that they're advertising. So, for example, the manual of Ratchet and Clank 1 states in Ratchet's own bio there that his friends describe him as a prankster and street smart, and the description for the Omni Wrench says that Ratchet sleeps with it. But neither of these two pieces of information has ever been referenced ever again. In particular, Ratchet's friends. We have never seen these friends of Ratchet, even though he has been to Veldon twice since he left.
Yeah. So, every time we've seen him there, he's always been alone. Well, other than Clank.
Yeah, which fits his character and justifies the fact that Ratchet is so close to Clank, because he is technically Ratchet's first friend and his closest friend.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's cool, especially given that that's so specific that it's very clearly calling out a nod to the game. So I'm slightly more inclined to believe it, for lack of a better word. That they're specifically calling out the Zoni, but until we actually see that happen, I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, and my particular theory beforehand that I pointed out, I believe, on the forums and in a previous in-depth, I wouldn't be surprised if I did, is that the lightning bolt that shuts down the factory in the movie was in fact caused by Orvis using his mystical otherworldly Zoni powers to give him the room to actually create Clank and set things in motion.
Yeah, I mean, I would not surprise me, or even if the computer itself was complicit in it again, giving Clank a mother.
Yeah, although I wouldn't be surprised if Clank's mother computer was written out, because she's important in the moment of Ratchet and Clank 1, but in terms of the overall saga, she is not important at all.
No, she's important to that specific game, but she never appears again. It would be kind of interesting to find out more about her, though. I've always thought that she'd be a very interesting character to follow, just because of it's very from her late Quartu talk, the discussion with Clank. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, you say follow, but she doesn't actually go anywhere.
I meant follow as in follow her perspective.
Yeah, but there's only so much you can do with a character that is bolted to the wall. That's like telling the origin story of the ATM machine.
They did do it in Portal 2 by making GLaDOS mobile.
Yes, but GLaDOS could talk through a PA system, and Portal was set entirely in this facility through which there is a PA system that she can talk through.
No, I mean, in the second game, they actually, take her out of her chassis.
Yes, I know, and I'm referring to why the original Portal worked, even though
Yeah.
GLaDOS couldn't move.
This is true. But, I mean, there's still things you could theoretically do. It'd just be an interesting perspective is all.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to dive into the character of Clank's mother to sort of crack the nut and discover more about her and her involvement with Orvis, for example. But it doesn't feel like it is important to the story.
No, it's really a side thing.
Yeah.
All right, so in addition to that, they go through some of the character bios, and Captain Quark's full name is still Captain Copernicus Leslie Quark.
Yeah, the full name wasn't actually given until A Crack in Time. Tools of Destruction had him Copernicus L. Quark, and then A Crack in Time expanded it to Copernicus Leslie Quark. So I talk about this in the in-depth. I'm not sure if you were around when I went on the spiel Division 10, but what I discussed in the in-depth was the fact that I'm noticing that Insomniac is bringing almost everything of the lore from the games into this new movie-verse.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that, but I definitely agree. They're really I remember the Velden gameplay we saw in PSX and how people got really excited when Grimroth's character used the Zoni in an exclamation instead of, say, oh God. He said something to the effect of like, oh Zoni. I can't remember the exact phrase, but they're really piling on all of their past lore.
Yeah, and at first glance, and I in particular felt this way, it felt lazy and confusing to bring that information into the new movieverse chronology. But upon reflection, and I realized this during the in-depth, they're doing it to instantly flesh out this universe in the first installment. If you go back to Ratchet and Clank 1, there's really no background information. All of the information that we see is what is presented to us that is important to the story. It isn't until we get to Ratchet and Clank Future, Tools of Destruction, and A Crack in Time that we get side things like the expansion of Lance and Janice, or the fact that Captain Quark has starred in My Blaster Runs Hot and the Unicop franchise. By bringing that into the movieverse, that means that this world instantly feels much more fleshed out and developed, and then Insomniac can build on top of that for future installments.
Yeah, I'm getting a very Harry Potter vibe out of it. That this is really a world and a universe that's fleshed out and alive.
Yeah, speaking of Unicop, when you're in the Metropolis level, as you make your way up to Al's Robo Shack, the fight outside his shack is expanded now. You actually have to take down a helicopter as a sort of mini boss, and as you're fighting, Big Al is getting frustrated because he doesn't want to have to call the police, which he has. But in order to do so, he has to put down his game of Unicop 2, Return of Unicop, because he's 7 levels in and he doesn't want to do it, damn it!
Oh man, you know those old twin stick shooters where you couldn't save?
You couldn't save what?
Your game. That's why you wouldn't want to put it down.
Couldn't save. You couldn't save. Oh yeah, there was no autosave.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm like and you couldn't save, and I'm like, what? You couldn't save your dog? The president's daughter?
No,
are you not a bad enough dude to save the president?
But I mean, things like if it was a twin stick shooter like My Blaster Runs Hot, you couldn't save your progress in My Blaster Runs Hot when you're playing it.
Yeah, that's one of the funny nostalgic anachronisms of Ratchet and Clank, where presumably in the future they would have the technology to have games that are 100 times better and more advanced than what we have, and yet they're stuck playing My Blaster Runs Hot, the game, a top-down, single-screen, twin-stick shooter.
The whole point is that it is deliberately bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm guessing that when he said that, my assumption was not that he couldn't put the game down so much as he couldn't save.
Yeah, that wasn't my thing as well. I mean, I thought, he's 7 levels in, okay, he's really immersed into this game and he doesn't want to, quote-unquote, jack out. But now that you pointed out, yeah, he most likely wouldn't be able to save. Or he was dumb enough to not have bought a memory card. So, the next news item is Cora's bio describes her as being about Ratchet's age, and she is apparently upset that Ratchet completely lucks his way into the Rangers after she herself spent most of her life trying to get in.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, which interestingly puts her, not only that she's the same age as him, it worries me that she might be a love interest. I really don't want that.
So the Korra thing has been a little bit interesting for fans because of the fact that, she's a female character. She looks a lot like Talwyn to the point where she has a similar hairstyle and a headband, and she spends a lot of time with Ratchet.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that Ratchet has had love interests in the past, and I don't inherently have a problem with him having a love interest. I mean, it's part of life is finding people to love, friendship
and
or
Sasha didn't
romantic.
either. I mean, it is clear that Sasha understands how important Talon is to Ratchet in the comics, and she realizes that, but she's still there to support Ratchet as a friend and help keep him going. When the fact that Ratchet thinks that Talwyn is dead. Spoilers.
Yeah, well, the comics are now, what, 6 years old?
Um,
5 or 6 years old, I believe.
They're closer to 5 years old than 6 years old. They came out at the end of 2010.
Anyway, so that being said, the fact that she's a similar age, and just her in general, has kind of set off a lot of Ratchet and Clank fans who have seen Ratchet and Talwyn become so intertwined with one another and their stories, and seeing this other girl who is probably a Marquesian question mark, though never outright stated as far as we know in promotional material, and myself included, some fans are worried. So seeing her age like that is adding to that worry. But from the material we've seen so far, we haven't seen any sort of romantic subplot.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a romantic subplot, you would think that we would have picked up on it and they would have advertised it in the trailers by now.
I would agree. So there's that, but the fact that they are similar ages is a little bit concerning.
Yeah. Next item?
Sure. The next item is now not about Cora, but on the other side of the scale about Drek. He's described in his bio as a blarg who runs a terraforming company called Drek Industries, implying that his company is 100% about the terraforming business, and not general weapons and technology manufacturing and research, like Blarg Industries was in Ratchet & Clank 1.
Correct, and actually the Novalis playthrough actually has a cutscene, a classic Infobot-style advertisement cutscene in the style of Ratchet & Clank 1 that actually expands further on this information. Drek inherited his company from his father, and that was when they were about weapons manufacturing and in particular robots. But unfortunately, the pollution caused by his father's company forced the Blargs to live underground.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's when Drek took over the company. We're not sure how or why. Like, we don't know if it's a hostile takeover, if his dad died, or if Drek killed his father to get the company. We don't know why. Basically, his father is now out of the company, and then what?
Drek, I am your father.
Oh, right. Okay. We don't know the exact context of how Drek became the CEO, but he's now the CEO, and he's trying to solve his polluted planet situation by building a new one.
I wonder how.
Yeah, so that is pretty much the story of Ratchet and Clank 1 in terms of Drek's motivations. We don't know what the planet is that has been polluted. We don't know its name and if it's still Orxon in this particular continuity. Given the appearance and the fact that it isn't explicitly green like its last two appearances, it might be a different world, but who knows? Maybe it's Yeedle.
Yeedle! Yeah, no, but Yeedle wasn't even in... Yeedle's not even in Solana.
No, it's not, but... you know.
I mean, who says the Blarg are actually from Solana?
Yeah. Anyway, you were saying something before I distracted you.
No, it's just, so I'm trying to remember, there's Orxon. What other worlds did the Blarg actually own? They didn't...
They have a facility on Gaspar, so it is implied that they own that.
Yeah, they did, and that's where you got your pilot's helmet.
Yeah. Well, it's not a planet,
Poketaru.
but BTS and Gimlik Base.
Yes, they owned those. They owned Quartu as well. That was where the robotics facility was.
Yeah, they would effectively have owned Quartu, and well, Hoven is sort of a yes and a no, because the original backstory for Hoven is that Drek built his Planet Buster facility right next to a local village, but that is only in the concept art. It is never actually stated in game, so potentially Hoven as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are Blarg all over Hoven, and they don't look like they're invading, per se. They look like they have facility on Hoven, but we don't know if it was a hostile takeover.
Yeah, those huts are obviously housing units for all the scientists.
Yeah. So,
Then again, the village would explain why Edwina has a Robo Shack there.
does make sense. Although it's also Edwina's modification to Clank in that game was considered an illegal modification.
So she's in league with the Blarg, do you think?
I don't know. It could be because in like I mentioned in episode 12, no 13, I just went and replayed Up Your Arsenal and I checked the menu screen and it says the Hydra Pack was an illegal modification.
Yeah, said so in Going Commando as well.
Yeah.
So the final. Sorry, do you have anything else?
No, I got nothing else. I'm excited to see what they do with that. That sounds really cool. It's giving Drek a bit more of an interesting backstory, I think.
Yeah, again, the Ratchet and Clank future style of fleshing out the universe. So the final bit on the website is in the About section of the site. Jim, James, David, and Armin are credited in their main character roles alongside the celebrity voice talent. Hooray!
Finally! Give these guys some due.
Yeah, well, they are playing the main characters. I mean, Cora, Alaris, and Brax are side characters. The only celebrity voice talent that would be put up on the poster as a main character would be Drek, because he's the villain, and maybe Sylvester Stallone as Victor Von Ion, but that's still a side character.
Yeah, it seems like he's a lieutenant. He's kind of just, I mean, he's not quote unquote just there, but he's not the main protagonist or antagonist.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, he was originally an unnamed character in the Ratchet and Clank games. He was a minor side boss in. Was he on Eudora or Novalis? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, you're talking about Victor Von Ion. For some reason, I thought John Goodman played a character in Ratchet and Clank before this.
No.
No, you're
Victor
thinking
Von
of the robot lieutenant that is on Eudora.
That was Eudora. I couldn't remember if it was Eudora or Novalis. I knew that there was a fight on a leafy planet, but it's been a while.
Oh, it's not even a fight. You walk up, he goes like, and then he freezes, and then he drops an infobot and runs away. And that's the last you ever see of him. So Victor Von Ion is very much a huge expansion and adaptation of that particular character.
Yeah, I think it's more of the visual of that character than anything else. It was a very cool visual design.
Yeah, and I can understand why they picked that character, because if you take him away, there isn't really any sort of right-hand man character that could have been put into the story. You have the scientists, but they're sort of a division and very much underlings, like the rest of the Blarg, like the brain scientist, for example. And then you have the elite commando troops who attack you on Velden and Kalibo 3. But again, they're a military unit and not sort of in a leadership position like the Eudora lieutenant is.
Yeah, so either they could have created an entirely new character or reused an older design, and they picked that older robot, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a nice little nod to the original game and expanding on that.
Yeah. That just about wraps it up for the website coverage. If you want to see more, then you can check out the website in-depth portion. I believe that was the second bit that we did?
Yes, it was. I was also on that, so that was part 2. Or you could just go to the website too. Go check it out. You can send gifts to friends.
Yeah, very fun. It's not a bullet point, but it's worth noting that the background music on the website is the same music that has been used for the existing Ratchet and Clank and Sheepinator TV spots.
Yeah, so you can hear that on loop as well. But why don't we move into our next segment? I got nothing else on the site.
Nah, me neither. We've pretty much exhausted everything we can talk about here. So the next news item is, it's small, but I feel it's significant. It is camera controls. On the Insomniac Games forums, Insomniac Viti informed the users that some of the camera options available in the game, well, worded that poorly. He informed us of some of the camera options available in the game. Yes, it sounds boring, but one of the interesting things he mentioned was a more heavily assisted camera and aiming system. This system is on by default when playing on easy, but it can be toggled on and off on any difficulty level.
Yeah, that's really useful, but that also means that you can make it harder for yourself by messing with the camera.
Correct. So if you're like me and you prefer the easy kills of easy mode because you don't really want to stress yourself out playing the game, but you don't want the kills to be sort of shoo-ins either, you can get rid of the auto-aiming system to sort of more fine-tune the difficulty so that there is still some actual skill involved. We actually got more into the camera control with the in-depths actually. Again, I discussed that in the videos, but we can discuss it here because we didn't notice at the time when I was writing the news item here. So there are two particular options as far as the camera aiming system is concerned. You can flick between normal and lock strafe camera modes, which are pretty self-explanatory. Lock strafe being sort of a third-person, first-person mode, where the camera is always behind Ratchet and is always in aiming reticule. Regardless of whether you turn that on or off, you also have the ability to turn on auto aim. Ratchet always has a reticule displayed whenever he's strafing or firing a weapon in normal mode. Basically, strafing or firing a weapon temporarily activates lock strafe, if you were to put a metaphor to it. Auto aim actually allows Ratchet to automatically target enemies, similarly to how he was able to do in Tools of Destruction.
Tools of Destruction also full.
A Crack in Time, Quisobudi?
No, All for One. There we go.
Yeah, that feels a little bit different because that was a director's cam.
That is true, but it was also an All for One.
Yeah.
God, this is what happens when I'm exhausted. It was also auto aim.
Yes. And I believe it was there by necessity in the original Ratchet and Clank because there was no strafing.
No, there wasn't.
No. So that was interesting. At the time, this was bigger news than it is right now because now we all know about the camera controls. But I still felt it was worth mentioning so that you can, as I said, more fine-tune the difficulty of playing the game so that you still need to actually be aware of where you're shooting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so before moving on, I thought I would just chuck in a thing that wasn't in the news, but I still felt was very well worth mentioning, which is that there is now a new PlayStation 4 theme based on the Ratchet and Clank game.
Right, so that brings the number of themes for PS4 for Ratchet and Clank to 2. The first of the two themes is a worldwide release, and it's a dynamic theme. There's only one way to get it, though, and you have to have pre-ordered the Ratchet and Clank game digitally.
Yeah, through PSN, and this is the theme that we already knew about. I was initially confused, actually, because I thought this free theme was actually the pre-order one, and at the time that was a relief for me because I was tossing up between getting the game digitally for the theme and of course pre-ordering because the bouncer, or whether I should get it physically so that I have a case to go with all my other physical Ratchet and Clank games.
Yeah, I got a physical release as well for two reasons. One, because I don't own every Ratchet and Clank game physically, since I lost my PS2 Ratchets 1, 2, and 3. I'm missing 2 and 3. I have 1 in English as well as Deadlocked, which I've only ever bought digitally, and Quest for Booty, which in the United States is not available as a physical release.
And by Deadlocked, you mean the HD one on
yes,
PS3.
I have Deadlocked as HD for PS3, so I'm missing Deadlock / Gladiator, depending on your region, as a physical disc.
I just call it Deadlocked. It's easier.
But I have all the PS3 games that were available in the United States, as well as the original Ratchet and Clank game, the original copy of it from 2002, and the PS4 game is going to go nicely with the rest of them. But the other advantage is, and this is a reminder to anybody who has Amazon Prime or Best Buy in the United States, is that you get a discount for pre-ordering games by having either of those services. And Amazon Prime is $8 off. So it's $32 if you want to pre-order it through them, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
So you still get the bouncer, and it's cheaper. So cheaper game and physical copy versus immediately at midnight and digital copy. Physical copy. But anyway, so as Kebabs was mentioning, there is a free theme. And this is not a dynamic theme, it is a static theme. It is available currently only to North American PlayStation owners. From what we can see, it's basically the dynamic theme with the dynamic elements removed. So it's a bunch of wallpapers that swap between based on what tier of the PS4 you're looking at. So if you're looking at the top tier, friends, trophies, yeah.
The main app reel would be the key art of the Tools of Destruction looking background with Ratchet bending over as if he's a baseball striker, apparently, with a blue background and various characters exploding behind him. And when you pop up to the top, it's the picture of Ratchet on Velden, sort of, standing on the rock and looking up into the sky, all pleased and whatnot.
Yeah, so those are the two images you get, and it's not amazing. I mean, that's saved for the dynamic theme, but it's pretty. And if you want Ratchet wallpapers on your PS4, it's free. You can just download it. There is a code on Insomniac's website if you want to hop over there, or you can go hunt it down in the PSN store as well.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest, I was not impressed at all with the theme. I mean, I know it's not a dynamic theme, but as far as I can tell, there's been absolutely no effort been put into it.
It's just two wallpapers. It's pretty, but...
Well, I had an issue with even the lower wallpaper because the key art for Ratchet and Clank is not composed for the PlayStation 4 UI. So the app reel covers Ratchet's face.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, that does stink. They're not being aware of where it's going to sit.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine for some apps, like the default apps like Internet Browser, Live from PlayStation, Capture Gallery, stuff like that. But if you're, say, hovering over a game icon, then that isn't transparent, so all of a sudden, Ratchet's face is censored.
Yeah, that stinks. I mean, I don't know any nicer way to say that.
Yeah, on top of that, the you know how the PS4 has icons and stuff for everything?
Yes.
A lot of themes take those vector files and at least apply something to them. They're ultimately the same icons, but say they look weathered or futuristic. The Ratchet & Clank theme doesn't even change the icons, nor does it change the UI sounds. So it is literally just a wallpaper pack.
I remember the Journey one completely changes the library and movie icons to be icons from the game. Several other specialty themes I have, like Tearaway, all do. I don't know if the dynamic theme does or doesn't do those things, but the static theme that we see does not.
Yeah, and people have been getting their dynamic themes already then?
I believe so. I don't want to confirm, but I'm almost positive that if you pre-ordered, you got that theme immediately.
Okay. So what does it look like then? Or what does it apparently look like?
It looks almost the same. I don't know what the dynamic elements are. I've just seen screenshots.
Oh. Okay, well, what are the two halves then? The lower and the upper areas. What do they look like?
Let me pull up what I saw as a screenshot.
I have actually signed into my PS4 just to double check right now, and the theme list has been updated, but it doesn't look like the Ratchet & Clank PS4 theme is available. So it seems like the static theme, as it were, is North American exclusive.
Insomniac actually confirms this on their Facebook page. if you are not if you are not able to access the North American PlayStation Store, you cannot download this theme.
This just gets worse and worse for me, doesn't it?
All right, yeah, here we go. Here's a. I'm giving it to you.
Okay. Pre-order theme video, 60 frames per second, by Mad Monkey Banks, giving full credit here. Published on June 11th, 2015. This is really old. I'm surprised I haven't seen this or hasn't been posted anywhere.
It is very similar to the theme that we have just received.
Yeah. Okay, so the upper screen is the screenshot of Kerwan with Ratchet's starting ship flying around, and the bottom screen is the Ratchet standing on a rock look screenshot from Velden that I described before, with the Ratchet and Clank logo in the corner. It sounds like the actual UI sounds haven't changed, so the background music is the same, and the icons are... It's what I mentioned before. They are the default PS4 icons, but they have a bit of an effect on them. In this case, they have a cyan gradient on them to make them look futuristic. But yeah, as you alluded to, there doesn't seem to be anything actually dynamic about this theme. It is literally another wallpaper pack with the icons changed slightly. So that is very disappointing. And I feel a lot better about not getting the digital version, because I would have been really let down by that theme had I, taken a look at it when the game came out.
I believe it's considered a dynamic and not a static theme by the fact that it changes the icon packs as well.
I don't think
No?
so at all, because I have a couple of other static themes for, say, the Final Fantasy VII static theme. That to me is a really good example of a brilliant static theme. The upper screen is terrible though, because it's the shot of the Midgar reactors from the remake teaser, and those are mostly white, and then you have white text.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, you can put in a pure black drop shadow, but that only helps a little bit, so that wasn't really well thought out. But the icons are completely changed to make it look like they're made out of live stream strands.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the music is the piano version of Aerith's theme from Crisis Core and Advent Children.
Oh, the really depressing song?
No, it's not depressing. That would probably mean it's the Crisis Core version then. Sort of, when Aerith is more happy and hopeful and not stabbed. But do you know what the best part of that theme is?
What?
All of the sound effects for the UI are taken from the original Final Fantasy VII game.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so as you're jumping around, it goes whack, 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 and then you go, and then you pull up the options menu, and it's all ta-ding.
That is very cool.
Yeah, so that is the kind of static theme that is brilliant. And considering the fact that the game is far enough along now to have had, music written for it and sound effects chosen and finalized for the UI, that is why I'm so disappointed with the custom and now dynamic themes, that they just don't have that attention to detail or care put into them. Now, if we want to go into an example of a brilliant Ratchet and Clank theme, then my first thought actually turns immediately to the dynamic theme of A Crack in Time.
Yeah, when I was trying to pull up the video for you to take a look just now, what was the first thing that came up? The A Crack in Time dynamic.
Yeah, that is based on the key art for A Crack in Time, the one of, again, the Tools of Destruction style one where he's standing on a rock and he's got a orange ground and teal sky. Wonder why they picked that, with a Nefarious' head in the background. And way on the left side of the screen, you have Ratchet and Asmus standing on a cliff face. So all of the icons for the PS3 theme were custom made. They're often taking vector elements used for the UI from the games, but that's okay. That's part of the authenticity of the theme, that it's Ratchet and Clank. So here's some Ratchet and Clank stuff. The sound effects were lifted from the PS3 games menus. And the coolest part was that the key art actually includes sort of vector clocks as part of the background art.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, they decided to turn that into an actual functioning analog clock that is synced up to the PS3's own clock, and every time it's every 60 seconds, a flash of lightning comes across the screen, again based on the key art. That is so cool.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So when my expectations are set to something not as grand as that, but on the same lines, with the same amount of care and attention to detail, you can understand why I'm disappointed with the themes.
Yeah.
Not that I'm blaming Insomniac, because I highly doubt that they made the themes themselves. That would be some department at Sony, I'd imagine.
No, as Insomniac said on the Facebook page where they announced the new static theme for free, they did say that this was up to the marketing teams at Sony.
Yeah.
So guys, I think rather than doing this all as a single episode, now that we've discussed the website, now that we've discussed the camera controls, and that we've discussed the free PS4 theme as well as the official pre-order theme, we're going to actually split up episode 14 into two halves, and the March Blowout is going to be its own section.
Yeah, I thought about the naming very hard, but I've settled on calling episode 14 episode 14, and the one after it episode 15. I think it's a little bit radical, but it will probably work.
Yeah, so we're busting through all of this news, but we're splitting into sections just because the March Blowout, the Mega March Madness blowout of Ratchet and Clank goodness, unfortunately,
the Mega March Media Madness Big Blowout Bonanza.
It is so big and so blowouty, it's got to be its own separate section. So on your playlist, just reel ahead, and we're going to move straight into episode 15. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, so we'll see you over there.